No, that's making it so we just can't go back.
Okay. Lisa? Here. Sam? Andrew Shushu?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Allie? Here. Jean? Present. Devin? Unabah? Nick? Kate? Rory?
Here.
Malad? Here. Rebecca Lieben? Rebecca Sampis?
Here.
Baran?
Hello.
Ivy? John?
Here.
Andrew Young?
Here.
Elena? Mark? Corey?
All right. So as Kate sent out the minutes last week, we do have Andrew? There's a motion on the table to waive the reading of minutes. Is there a second? Second by Jean. Questions and wording? Discussion? All those in favor of waiving last week's reading of minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Ryan?
I move to approve the minutes.
There's a motion on the table to approve the minutes. Is there a second? Second by Jean. Questions for wording? Discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Great. Thank you very much, Kate. We're now going to move into public comments. Are there any public comments on the floor, either from student council members or those in the audience? All right. Seeing none, we'll move into financial matters. So Ivy, with the grants report?
So I moved to allocate $45 per officer for the Park Sustainability Fund.
There's a motion on the table to allocate $45 from quarter four to the Park Sustainability Initiative. Is there a second? Second by Malott. Questions for wording? Discussion. Ivy?
So Sharon Ford came to Grant asking for $45 to go towards covering registration fee for a sustainability summit that is going to be attended and it's going to be held in the UMass Boston Shopping Center. And is she here right now? No. But yeah, that's what we recommended.
Is there a motion? Oh, recommendation. Further discussion? All right. Seeing none, we'll move into voting. All in favor of allocating $45 from quarter four to the Clark Sustainability Collaborative, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Ivy?
The next one is the Haiti Relief Initiative. Alina O'Connor. Yeah. Basically, they wanted $1,200. And this was split up between 4 fundraisers they were going to be holding. So, if you guys want to talk more about that.
Would you, sorry, before you speak, would you like to make a motion?
Oh, sorry. I moved to allocate $1,200 from quarter four to the Haiti Relief Initiative.
There's a motion on the table to allocate $1,200 from quarter four to the Haiti Relief Initiative. Is there a second? Second by Andrew. Questions for wording? Discussion. Ivy.
As I said before, that and Alina's here to talk more about that.
So the Haiti Relief Initiative is a group of students working on student-led projects in Haiti. So this would be for a project for getting computers for students displaced by the earthquake in central Haiti. And they would be computers that we'd donate. We'd get a power system, and then there'd be internet, and it would end up being kind of a cyber cafe so that it could be sustainable. So the fundraisers, so we're requesting money for a backup generator and baking supplies, candy, and smoothie supplies to use at Go Green on the Green, the Diversity on the Green, the Peace Fair, and we're also fundraising at Gala on Friday. So I don't know if there's any other questions.
Further discussion or questions? Ivy?
When we're going to put in the 2 waivers? No, is that the motion?
Oh no, that's with the entire motion. So do you want to make do you want to make an amendment?
Okay. I'd like to amend my motion into including issuing a food waiver as well as a cheese waiver.
Okay. Is there a second? Second by Andrew. Questions for wording? Discussion? All those in favor of amending the recommendation to include a food waiver and a 2-week waiver, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, so now the total the total recommendation is $1,200 for quarter 4, with a 2-week waiver and a food waiver to the Haiti Relief Initiative. Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move into voting. All in favor of allocating $1,200 from quarter 4 to the Haiti Relief Initiative with a 2-week waiver and a food waiver, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Heidi?
I move to allocate $40 from quarter 4 to Unified Sports.
There's a motion on the table to allocate $40 from quarter 4 to Unified Sports. Is there a second? Seconded by Milat. Questions for wording? Discussion. Ivy?
So Unified Sports came to grants requesting funding for 2 basketball hoops and shipping costs, and we previously granted the money for these 2 hoops, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they used the money for something else. So grants fell with the remaining funds from the current money that we granted before, as well as what we funded now in towards those 2 hoops.
So last time we requested $550 and we were granted $350, $240 of which we had to use to pay for space for practices. There's the agreement. And we didn't request money for 2 hoops. We only requested for 1, and we have the info here if you care to look at it. But it costs $129.95, and the shipping is $20, but we talked to the manager of the company, and since it's a good cause, he agreed to give us half off, so we would only need $10 for shipping, but still that we wouldn't have enough money for that, and as well as at the end of our season, we would like to give all of the kids a medal or at least a pizza party for their participation, and we have 14 athletes and about 20 volunteers, so the program is growing, and half of our athletes can't use the big hoops at all.
So we have one that's in a wheelchair, so we would like an accessible hoop rather than the normal one, so they can actually do it.
Yeah, because without that, they really can't participate very much, so it's important.
Further discussion?
I just have a question about, because you're going off campus, right? Would the hoop be stored here or there?
We talked to the people there, and they told us that if we use the storage there, that they wouldn't be held accountable if something happens. So we decided to either store it in our suites this year, and then we would keep it for fun, not there.
It's collapsible, so it's not the storage wouldn't be too big of an issue.
Yeah.
Would you be able to do what you just said with the $40 that we allocated to? How would that work?
If we had the $40, we have 110 left, so that would give us $150. So the hoop with the discount he gave us costs exactly $140, so then we would have $10 for a pizza party for about 40 people. And there would be no medals in that case for the kids.
Milat?
I move to make an amendment to the recommendation. I move to allocate $170 to the United Sports.
There's a motion on the table to amend the recommendation to $170. Is there a second? Seconded by Rebecca. Questions to the wording? Discussion. Milat?
Well, as the group is stated right now, they would be able to have the medal ceremony and pizza party for the students they're going to have, so I think it's appropriate that we allocate the rest of the money.
Further discussion? No further discussion? Okay, so we're gonna move into voting on. Oh, Ivy?
Can I just make sure that if something like that happens next time, could you let us know in advance that we don't see the same request coming up again? Because that was the problem we had. So
Yeah,
just for the future reference.
So, any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, we'll move into voting on the amendment, not the full recommendation, but amending it to $170. So, all in favor of amending this recommendation to $170 for Unified Sports, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. Motion carries. So now the request stands at $170 from quarter 4 to Unified Sports. Further discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, we'll move into voting. All in favor of allocating $170 from quarter 4 to Unified Sports, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. Motion carries. All right, thank you. Ivy?
I move to allocate $210 from quarter 4 and $260 from Cat 51 to One Campus Challenge.
There's a motion on the table to allocate $210.20 from quarter 4 and $360 from advocacy to One Campus Challenge. Is there a second? Second by Ryan. Questions to the wording? Discussion? Ivy?
So One Campus Challenge is grant requesting funding to cover a trip to Washington for 3 e-board members. And this is an invitation-only summit, as it stated. The expenses are mostly travel, which is why we split the cost as follows. But,
So 3 of us from the e-board would be going, and it's a really great opportunity to go and network with other One Campus Challenge like chapter leaders, and also with a lot of high-ranking people within the organization. And we'd also be doing a lot of lobbying there. So it'd be a great learning experience for our club, and we could bring it back to our other members and kind of show them what we learned.
Further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move into voting. So all in favor of allocating $210 from quarter 4 and $360 from advocacy to One Campus Challenge, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Oh, there was one abstention. Lenny? By Ally. Sounds good. All right. Anything else to report? All right. Thank you for your work. Alrighty, so we're going to move into the finance committee report. Andrew?
Okay, so we've been going through for the past week with the ABA process for annual budgets. There's about 20 to 25 proposals requested to appeal our committee's initial recommendation. So we're going to meet with our club since Monday, and we're going to meet with them until Tuesday. Our next set of recommendations will be sent out Tuesday night, and groups are then also encouraged to show up to the meeting on April 4th, where we will be approving budgets.
Sounds good. I saw your hours that your committee has posted on the door, and they're very extensive, so thank you for all of your hard work this week, and we're excited to see your budget recommendations next week. Thanks. Anything else, Andrew?
No, that's it.
So we're going to move into student life. So organizational, Rory?
We had 2, well, technically 3, but 2 PCF requests. We gave 300 to ourselves, I guess, to get the ice cream truck for the 3-day. We could not give EcoReps their PCF, unfortunately, because again, we've had these come up where it's been a prize for an event, and we don't feel that what the fund is for, and this is about the 3rd or 4th time this has happened, not with EcoReps, club in general. And then there was a little confusion with another one, but I think it got sorted out. So it was true. Bus to Boston is this week, so if anyone wants to do that. Okay.
Nick?
I have a question because
Yeah.
on the link it said 7th of April, if I'm correct. Is it this week or next one?
Allie?
We're looking into that right now, so stay tuned for news on Bus to Boston.
And yeah, we've got space allocations, deadlines coming up for clubs, and we'll be reviewing those shortly.
Great. All right. So we're going to move into the judiciary report. Andrew?
So we have 2 folks to recognize. First is the Student Alumni Relations Committee, CUC. We're recommending that Student Council recognize them organization. We're further recommending that student council vote to waive the 2-semester trial period. Reason being that they've been active since like the 80s.
Is there a motion, Ryan?
I move to approve the charter and recognize the Student Alumni Relations Committee and waive the 2-semester requirement.
There's a motion on the table to recognize SARC and waive the 2-semester requirement. Is there a second? Second by Sam. Questions to the wording? Discussion? Ryan?
Once again, if I'm relieving the title too. And Sergeant Swanson.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move into voting. All in favor of recognizing SARC and waiving the 2-semester trial period, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. Motion carries. Andrew?
We also got a charter from a club called EOM, and we are recommending that we recognize that as well.
There's a motion, sorry, there's not one. What is the full name?
They don't actually say in the charter under Article 1 name of organization. It reads the name of this organization shall be EOM and first referred to as EOM. So that's all I got.
My friend's in it. It's a secret. She will not tell anyone unless you join the club. But it's a cult film club. Sorry.
How
Due to industry programming, has been in communication with this club to make sure the secret nature of it is still within the guidelines as set forth by student council. Due to industry programming, it is, though I will not reveal
Great. Question to Ryan?
I move to approve the charter and recognize EOM.
There's a motion on the table to approve and recognize EOM. Is there a second? Second by Baran. Questions for wording? Discussion? Ryan?
Yeah, I just want to know what this is.
I think we should all join. Further
There's a viral
discussion?
market.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move into voting. All in favor of approving and recognizing EOM, please say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Andrew?
Last thing is we're voting on 2 referendums today. I'll give you guys more information on that.
Sounds good. Alrighty, so that moves us into internal business. And first of all, with the operations report, I need people to table during gala, which is between 5:15 and 10 p.m. on Friday. And essentially we need everyone. So.
Oh, good to know.
So what this will be is that you can, and I'm still working on confirming this with ISA, but I'm 97% sure that means that you get to cut all of the lines, go into gala, you can have a specific shift that you'll be working our table, and then you'll, as Jessica Chung told me, you'll be able to see like the video of gala still happening, but you probably won't be in like direct sight for the actual performance, but then you'll only have that shift and then you'll move away. So after this meeting, I'm going to be talking to many of you, and we need your help because we are fundraising for the Nelson Place Library, and essentially if we don't make quite a bit of money here, they won't have books for their children to read.
Children. This is a guilt thing.
Yes. Thanks.
They won't be able to find.
So please don't get mad at me when I ask you to do this. It's really very, very, very essential. All right. Second of all, Holy Cross will be on our campus, or representatives from, not called Holy Cross, representatives from, okay. We're going to be dealing with some serious things later in the meeting, so we need to maintain some sort of demeanor. So Holy Cross representatives will be on our campus to discuss a new and improved Blue Bus idea. So if you have any ideas about that, please talk to me because I will be in that meeting. Obviously, I'm leaving office in 2 weeks, so my opinions really don't matter too much. So please talk to me so I know what you want to do so that I can adequately represent you guys. Okay. And then my third item will be talked about in the elections committee report. Perfect. Ally?
The Best of Boston is next week, so we don't need anybody for this week. So enjoy your weekend. Also, if you're interested in working with me on issues of campus safety, I haven't quite figured out what exactly I'm going to do yet, but I'm going to do something. It's going to be big. So if you're interested, find me after the meeting.
Word.
Thank you, Ally. And also find her if and you will be interested in tabling for Gala.
Right, so I'll see you all at some point between 5:30 and 10:30 this Friday.
All right. Ryan, what?
Yeah, I would like to express my displeasure at how my name is spelled in this agenda.
I don't know who changed it, but thank you for adding change. Andrew?
I'd like to say formally that I'm sorry. That was me.
All right.
Well, this is a thing. I hope you know.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Kate. All right, so Rebecca is not here. So would someone from elections like to discuss some elections things? Around and Nick, I'm looking at you. Around?
All right. Lisa, would you like to elaborate on what we went over in that meeting?
Sure. Thanks, Ron. So first and foremost, election petitions are due April 2nd, and the reason why I keep on printing the positions that are due or that are available during the special election is because I want you to commit these to memory, and then anytime you see anyone from one of these halls, ask them to run, essentially, and that goes for you in the audience. If you're interested in being a part of this craziness, please pick up a petition and run if you're in those places. We'd love to have you. Secondly, there's a possibility of another election, April 24th and 25th, pending the referendum that we're going to be discussing tonight. And third, I'd like to thank Kate for agreeing to table today. Both of us were outside in Red Square asking people what they wanted to see changed on campus, and we got some good ideas, and we'll be talking about those next meeting. And also, we were handing out petitions for people to run for office, and we did hand out a couple. So it's working. Anything to add, Ron?
So.
Nick? Cool. Alrighty, so we're going to move into communications. Rebecca.
Okay, so April 15th, we have officially co-sponsored the Diversity on the Green event with Open and amongst all the other undergraduate groups on campus. So this is going to be a huge event. Everyone should come. We're going to be having a table. We're going to serve some drinks. We're going to have like a little information flyer. So everybody, April 15th, 1 to 4 p.m. And it's going to be awesome and fun. And there's going to be food and it's going to be good.
Great. Do you need people to table?
Yes, but I will get back to that.
Okay, sounds good. Alrighty, so I'm going to skip over unfinished business for the time being, just so we can address the new business, and it'll come after new business. So first and foremost, we're going to move to the Green Venture, or the Green Fund referendum, and I don't know if you have a specific name.
We do, Student Sustainability Fund.
Student Sustainability Fund. So we'll be discussing that first, and I'll refer you to the addendums to your agenda, and this would be the addendum 2, referendum 1, Sustainability Fund. And if everyone could read over what this club is interested in proposing. Essentially, they came to a variety of us asking for a referendum to be put on the ballot, and that's the election that I alluded to in the Elections Committee report, the April 24th and 25th election. And the language is there, and then the bylaw language is there as well. So the election would essentially include the referendum language and not the bylaw language, but the bylaw language is pertinent because that's what would be inserted into our Constitution if this referendum passes.
We made changes to the bylaw and referendum language.
Okay, good. This is the
We
Ellen?
sent it the updated version. The one you replied to us today.
Which one is that?
We sent it.
In the agenda, that's the updated version?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Are you looking at the language on the petition? So that's there,
Yeah.
but then the bylaw language is also there.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, confusion.
Yeah, no, we put that information on the agenda because we know you're going to be talking about the signatures that you received, so we just wanted people to know what people were signing, when they were signing.
Yes, certainly.
Cool. So if you look at the bylaw language and then the referendum language and read that over, I can let the group talk about it. Maybe if you just want to start with like a little bit of a historical perspective and then move on to more information with the club. Ryan, did you have a?
Yeah, I have a question. The vote we're going to be taking tonight is going to be on whether or not we want this referendum to go to the student population. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, Ryan. So we're not voting on whether or not this is a good idea or if this is something that we personally want to be inserted in our constitution, but we're voting on whether or not this should go to a vote to the general constituency, if that makes sense. Ellen?
Point of clarification. So should we be discussing if there's any issues with like the language for like the bylaw itself? Are we discussing that, or we're only talking about the referendum?
I would say that we're only talking about the referendum itself. No?
I mean, I personally would recommend that if you want to, if you have any issues, you must talk about the bylaw itself, because basically what you're doing is you're abdicating your right to be the sole rulers of what goes in the Constitution and what doesn't to the student body. And so we should be pretty clear on what exactly we're submitting to them to decide.
Here it has the referendum on sustainability fund has language of petition and referendum language. What is the difference between those two?
Okay, so to clarify, and I'm sure that the sustainability fund group will go over this and what they're about to talk about, but they collected signatures, and the signatures were collected with the language of the petition on the top, so people signing the petition were signing for that language, if that makes sense. The referendum language is a language that will actually appear on the ballot itself. Okay, does that make sense?
So the first one is what it was, and the second one is what it will be.
Exactly. Milan?
Does this have anything to do with the signatures that have been collected?
The signatures that were collected are... Okay, if you guys want to take this, you can take it. Katie?
I will start. A lot of folks in the room have already heard my kind of speech on this, so for those who haven't, here it is. Essentially, there was a number of miscommunications that occurred over the process of working with both of these groups of students who were submitting referendum. They met with next year's e-board, this year's e-board, myself, Mike, Judas. There was a lot of voices in the conversation, and unfortunately there were some errors made in terms of clearly outlining what the policy or the procedure for submitting a referendum was. Fortunately, these errors were caught in enough time to rectify them for this current year. Unfortunately, the student groups involved in both of these referendums had already put forth considerable effort in terms of following what they thought the procedure was, though their thought was colored by our miscommunication. Does that make sense so far? So essentially, to get a referendum on the ballot, folks need to submit the language to judiciary for approval. If judiciary finds the approval to be constitutional, an election is then announced for those referenda, which occurred yesterday, thus fulfilling the 1 month time frame that your constitution mandates for an election announcement. Students submitting the referenda can then ask for student council to approve the inclusion of their language on the ballot, which is what they are both here to ask you for tonight. That approval has to be given with a 2/3 vote by the representative council. The other way they can do it is to collect signatures in the amount of 1/4 of the undergraduate student population. As these groups had due to our miscommunication, collected signatures prior to that language being considered, those signatures would not be determined valid by Judiciary and Elections Committee should they have been submitted. So and the folks here from Student Sustainability who this affected in a greater deal than Student Venture Fund in terms of signature collection can elaborate on the signatures they collected. But because they had already put forth the effort to collect those signatures, they decided to come to ask for the 2/3 approval to keep them from having to recollect 500 and some 500 is like 512 signatures. So that's kind of the background as to why they're here, asking for your approval for inclusion on the ballot. And yeah, that history, good for folks. Further questions?
Do we have the language that the green fund used to collect these signatures?
Yes.
Yes. That's at the top. It says language on the petition and it says an allocation of 20,000. That's what it said previously.
Thanks. Further questions? So, if you guys would like to tell us your tale a little bit, that would be great.
Okay. So I guess I just want to introduce to you guys the idea of our fund and the way that it is kind of the operations of it, just in a very general way. So we've been operating under the mission statement that the Student Sustainability Fund is a resource for the advancement of sustainable practices, education, and infrastructure within the Clark community. Working among our classmates and our peers, we've come to recognize a significant commonality among communities, and that is a sense of innovation and a wealth of ideas. In classes, among friends, and all over campus, students talk about their own green ideas. Projects like Recycling Initiative and the Co-op have received significant funding according to the overwhelming student support. However, given current funding opportunities, there aren't enough resources to sustain the demand for student-led initiatives on campus. So basically, we're proposing an allocation of $20,000 from the student activities fee to a student sustainability fund that would support these projects and help create and sustain the green culture of Clark's community and foster a healthy, dynamic, and positive atmosphere for everyone who lives here and is passing through. Following in the tradition of many funds established at comparable institutions, we could support projects such as the year-round window farms at Brandeis, electricity producing workout equipment at Wesleyan, or providing bus passes to students like at Colorado and American and Austin. These projects all would align with the university's policies regarding sustainability, but go above and beyond the responsibilities of physical plant and the pre-existing budget. The fund is handled by an auxiliary committee to student council, with the vice president working with the committee to ensure coherence with CUSC and accurate representation of the student body and student demands. We are committed to the most effective use of resources and the most genuine union of student ideas and student money. Students with ideas for sustainability projects would be able to apply for funding each semester. This application process includes an initial expression of interest as well as a comprehensive application that outlines both the budget and the timeline for the completion of that project. This in-depth proposal will be comprised of input from the students leading the project, faculty, staff, and clubs supporting the project, and any expertise needed concerning feasibility and implementation. The committee comprised of 5 students with varying responsibilities, including an understanding of and communication with administration, sustainability policymakers, applicants, and technology issues. Will then review and revise applications until they are satisfactory. The committee will then vote on the applicants and allocations, and that final decision would be approved by the Clark University Sustainability Task Force, which I don't know if you guys know very much about, but it's a guiding body put together by the president for sustainable practices and philosophies at Clark. This has kind of already been said, but we're proposing that council votes to include the ballot language or the referendum language in the upcoming election. And I mean, a lot of this has been talked about, but the points that we want to make
here just is that your vote does not imply either support or resistance to the creation of the fund. It just recognizes that the potential for a fund is worthy of the intention of the entire student body and warrants a popular vote. And also, we believe that a vote for the inclusion of this ballot language is like a vote for transparency regarding the student activities fee. And as students, we entrust council with the responsibility to allocate funds in a way that fosters a dynamic campus culture for all students. Including our language in the upcoming election would allow students to have an active say in how their money is used. And this is an opportunity to engage students directly with student council. And finally, due to the miscommunications regarding the process for ensuring this vote, our organizers have already collected proof of student support. We collected over 500 signatures in like just maybe like 2 or 3 days through like a lot of time and effort. So the confusion about the order of the steps needed to create the referendum has rendered these invalid, but we hope that you can consider them proof that at least a quarter of the student body has shown their support concerning the regard and concern regarding the creation of the fund. So that's my spiel.
Great. Do you want to all state your names for a few minutes just so we have?
Yes, I'm Jordan Bailey.
I'm Heather McKenzie.
Sharon Bort.
All right. So now that you've heard from the Student Sustainability Initiative, if I'd like to, I encourage, or not encourage, Allie. Thank you.
I have a question. Okay, so originally when I read the bylaw language, I was curious about like how student council would be able to like oversee this fund and whether it was going to be an audit process. But I was just wondering, in the bylaws, since it's going to be going into our constitution or set of bylaws, if we could include what you had read about the vice president's role on the committee, just so, never mind, Andrew?
So the language that will go into our constitution isn't actually reproduced here. And in section 2.1 of the bylaw that issued to us, vice president's role is actually.
If anybody wants to read it.
No, as long as it's in there.
I think it'd be good. Do you mind sending it around?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So actually, what I was trying to gesture towards is that in order to formally sort of discuss this, we should probably have a motion on the table. Is that correct, Andrew? Yeah.
I move to accept the referendum 1 for the sustainability fund.
The student sustainability.
Student sustainability fund.
Take SSF, if that's easier.
I move to include the referendum for the student sustainability fund on the ballot for the April 24th, 2025 election.
Is there a second? Second by Rebecca. Questions to the wording? Discussion, Allie? Oh, you have a question to the wording?
Is this
Ryan?
a wording of the motion or a wording of the actual thing itself?
No.
Is that a question about the wording of the thing itself?
No, questions to the
yeah.
wording of the motion. Any questions to the wording of the motion? Okay. Discussion, Allie?
I'll let you guys discuss it further.
Okay. So I think that I'm just going to structure this a little bit more. So I think that the first thing that we should be looking at is the referendum language itself. Or actually, first, let's do questions for you guys about the fun things about that. And then we'll talk about referendum language, and then we'll talk about bylaw language. And we'll move into voting after everything has been discussed. So first, questions for the Student Sustainability Fund. Ryan?
Yeah, I have several substantive questions, but I'd like to get to them a little later. I have a technical question about the way this is worded here. It says in the referendum language, an allocation of $20,000 from the Student Activities Fund has been proposed to creative fund, and then further down, a yes vote will allocate $20,000 of the student activities fund to the sustainability fund. Now, my concern with that is that it doesn't say for the 12-13 academic year, which suggests to me that we will automatically have to find $20,000 in this year's budget, 11-12, and it will not apply to the 12-13 academic year because it just says will allocate $20,000. It doesn't say that it will be renewable. So, what is your response to that?
We had initially put that, so I'm going to appeal that to judiciary.
Andrew?
So in the bylaw language, you'll note that it says that the SSF will receive the funding through the annual budget process.
Excuse me, where does it say that? Sorry.
That is under section 5.
Which you have not yet.
Okay, but
We're not asking.
I guess my confusion stems from the fact that the referendum language, which would be the only thing that would actually be passed by the student body, doesn't say anything about the bylaw. It just says that this will allocate $20,000. You know, the actual referendum language mentions nothing about a bylaw at all. And so it seems to me as if, just from a technical perspective, this language doesn't refer to a bylaw, it just refers to allocating $20,000 to the SAF, which would be, at the time of its passage, which would be the 11-12 academic year.
Elena?
So the problem we had initially is that in the referendum language, they specified that it was for the 2012-2013 year, and that would imply that after the next academic year, they would not get back any more funding. So we told them that should have changed that, and they just removed completely this mechanism.
So we think because the allocation of the money for the student sustainability fund comes from the annual budget process, it would be understood that would apply to the 2012-2015 school year and not to the 2011-2012. But if you really think that it's an issue, then I invite you to amend it, add the language of allocation of $20,000.
Yeah, I think I'd like to take that route because as treasurer of student council, I think about the SAF more than most, and it's unclear to me, and so I'm concerned that it's going to be significantly unclear to students who don't have any reason to think about the SAF. Do you have a recommendation for specific language? Because there were concerns about the 12-13 language previously.
What could be said is a yes vote will allocate starting at the 2012-2013 academic year, and therefore annually afterwards, or something along those lines. We'll allocate $20,000 for this blah, 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 blah. So you state, basically the wording would be better than what I just said, would basically state, would start next year and annually afterwards.
Right.
And should there be language in the referendum to refer to a specific bylaw? Because I don't see any of that either in there.
Yeah.
But how do students know that it creates a bylaw?
So what we were planning on doing was to, so because the election itself happens online, I have the documents of the bylaw and the charter, and we were planning on putting them on the clerk, the COC website, and then putting hyperlinks to the election itself, so that if you want to, you could link yourself to the document and
Okay.
Right.
I move to amend the referendum language to read as follows. A yes vote will allocate, beginning in the 2012-13 academic year and continuing thereafter, $20,000 to the Student Activities Fund to the Student Sustainability Fund. This allocation will be governed by the documents following hereafter. Please note that by voting yes, your student activities fee will not be raised, full stop. I so move.
Is there a second? Second by Veron. Questions to the wording?
Can I just take it as a friendly amendment?
I'm happy to take friendly amendments.
Yeah.
Of course you have.
you should pass it for objections.
Objections to a friendly amendment? Okay, seeing none, the amendment is deemed as friendly, so that is the new wording of the bylaw, or excuse me, the referendum. Yes.
Can you just repeat that?
Yes, absolutely. A yes vote will allocate, beginning in the 2012-13 academic year and continuing thereafter, $20,000 of the student.
Stop.
Okay.
continuing annually thereafter, $20,000 of the Student Activities Fund to the Student Sustainability Fund. This fund will be governed by the documents contained hereafter. Please note that by voting yes, your student activities fee will not be raised. Full stop.
Thank you.
Okay. So to try to return to the structure that I had initially proposed, I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions for the Student Sustainability Fund Initiative folks to ask them. And I would like to just sort of limit this to perhaps general questions having to do with the report that they just gave us. Kate?
I'm sorry, can I just move to have like a 1 or 2 minute recess so I can like read it over? Or so that we can like read it over in full before we ask questions? And what's being passed around the room?
Is there a second? Second by Sam? Question, or?
Yeah, for a,
You didn't see that.
2 minute recess? 2 minute recess?
Is there a second? Second by Sam. Questions to the wording? Discussion? All those in favor of a 2 minute recess, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. This meeting of the 141st session of Student Council will come to order. Kate, roll call.
Lisa?
Here.
Sam?
Here.
Andrew?
Here.
Ryan?
Here.
Allie? Here. Jean?
Here.
Devin? Minerai?
Here.
Nick?
Here.
Kate? Rory?
Here.
Malat? Here. Rebecca Lehman? Rebecca Stompus? Here. Veron?
Sitting.
Ivy? John?
Here.
Andrew? Young?
Here.
Elena? Mark? Court?
Okay, thank you, Kate. So does everyone have a copy of the bylaw? So you can ignore the one that's in your agenda. I reproduced an incorrect version, I believe. So please refer to the one that just got passed to you. Does everyone have a copy of that?
Duh.
Okay. I'll take that as German, not as offensive.
Wait,
Okay. So let's move back into asking the clerk, Student Sustainability Fund folks, more questions about the general proposal. We'll move into wording questions later. Okay. Anyone else? Ryan?
I have a question about the $20,000 number. On what basis did you pick that number? Have there been projects totaling about that amount for a number of years beforehand? Was that picked out because of projects you hope to see put in place? Do you anticipate that happening year after year after year? Where does that number come from?
So it started with, there was a green mentality survey, and one of the questions on the survey was, what would students be willing to give towards some sort of fund? This was before we'd even gotten started, and there was an over
70%.
Yeah, 70% of the students that responded would be willing to give $15 as some sort of fee or something, part of their tuition to some sort of fund like this. So we started out with $30,000, which is what that the math would have turned out. And we have set it back a little bit, as kind of a trial, and it aligns with say what you said about capital projects.
So there are a couple of reasons why. One is because, as we said, we started with a much larger number. It was $30,000 a semester, which would make it $60,000 a year. When we met with the e-board, they suggested that we scale it back and give it a trial run. We thought that was a fantastic suggestion, so we chose $20,000. The reason why we chose that number to scale it down to is because any amount, the capital projects done through Clark University, the university's policy is that anything more than $20,000 must go through the university. So,
Is that clear?
so that's why we settled on that number as something kind of a benchmark. Yeah.
Ryan?
Yeah, so the number was arrived on because that was essentially the medium between what people were willing to pay and the minimum required to get university support for the projects.
No, anything greater than $20,000, a project that takes more than $20,000 has to go through the university as an institution.
Right.
So $20,000, and then also the sustainability physical plant budget can't possibly fund a project that would that this fund could fund.
Right.
So that it's the median between this issue of capital projects and existing budgeting scenarios, and it's also the trial compared to what students had shown their support for, which was the initial 60,000 through the Green Intelligence.
Yeah. I'm very willing to accept that there'll be $20,000 worth of projects next year and probably even the year after that. My concern is that I'm not sure that there'll be $20,000 worth of projects every single year going forward indefinitely. And more to that point, that there'll be $20,000 worth of projects that can be run and managed by students and student council every single year. So my concern is that some of this money is going to go unspent by the students who paid the SAF that year.
Okay, so a lot of things. The leftover goes back into your budget. There's no rollover into the special account. It goes back into your budget, same surplus, whatever. The other thing is you would be surprised about the constant technology and innovation going into sustainability. And, you know, I really just want to encourage you to open your minds to how broad sustainability is. I go back to saying, like, you know, Project Playground could have taken advantage of this if they wanted extra money for landscaping or gardening. You know, there's a lot of ways to stretch this term. I don't think there will ever be a shortage of projects. As far as management goes, it's not you guys. We didn't want, you guys are already overworked. You have a lot of things on your plate and we didn't want to add something else. That's why we have this committee formed to deal with these problems. The vice president is involved, so there is a connection because it is money related to student council. This isn't meant to be, you know, an extra thing for you guys to do. It's meant to be managed by a committee to help students really get things done, make their ideas a reality, and money is usually that thing stopping it.
To address your concern about us running out of projects and ideas, in our charter, we have a 3-year renewal review process. So after 3 years, and every 3 years after that, this charter, this fund is up for review by student council.
It's also in section 6 of the bylaw language, this review process. So if it is a terrible fail after 3 years, we can just be like, okay, good work, good try. But that won't happen.
Corey?
And I'm hopefully not wrong enough, but I don't think I am, to defend the whole, what if there's not enough products, SAB or any other group that we give money to, they may not spend all their money every year and it just goes over the budget. So that this fund would be no different. It just, this is the money they will have at the beginning, which will then go into the surplus. So that's all I'm saying.
In addition to what you guys are saying, one thing that I would like to point you to is that each year there are more and more clubs, there are more and more student organizations that are being started up. And right now we have, I think, about 7 student organizations that are trying to get recognition from student council itself. So each year these groups are pushing to get a budget. And by having that 2,000 number, we're in a sense reducing that amount that the students group can get. So that's a factor that we have to look toward, because this $20,000 is essentially at the same time cutting away from the budgets of these student organizations that are annually trying to get more and more budgets, and at the same time there are more and more student organizations being brought up. So I just like to point that out.
I'd like to perhaps refocus the discussion. While it does make sense to tangentially talk about the merits of actually implementing this, I think that we should be focusing on whether or not this is an appropriate idea to be brought forth to the students, because that's what we're voting on, not necessarily the direct merits of the bylaw. I understand that it does relate, but if we could keep our focus in that area, that would be good. Mirbad?
Yeah, for all but Violet related, I think for the language-wise, we should add more like if they're gonna say that $20,000 is gonna be covered student activity fund, what does that mean? Or that it's gonna be less money for the clubs? I think that section would be supposed to include one or two sentences in something to make the students to understand it's gonna be less money for the clubs.
I'm going to take a speakers list at this point. So I have Andrew, Malat, Sam, Sharon. Okay.
Last we talked about the process that was going on here. These were questions directed at us. And at this point, we haven't had a chance really to respond to any of these things that you guys have been saying. So I don't know if we can maintain that process of questions.
So
That
the way
I think
that-
would be really effective.
Yes, I agree. So we're still in the sort of questions segment. According to Robert's rules, no one can speak without being called on, and usually we do go through sort of a speakers list when we have multiple people. But if there is a direct question, then obviously I would allow you to sort of speak out of turn. However, Andrew?
I just wanted to respond to your box point.
Can I, sorry,
Yes,
can I just stay on my same train? So, like I said, I'm encouraging that these points be made sort of to general questions about the group. However, I don't want this to necessarily be a space for debate on the merits, so it's a little bit shaky because any question sort of is somewhat indicting, and then we do get into debate about whether or not whether or not it's meritorious, so it's a little bit difficult. Elena?
I think it would be easier if we can write down some questions are going to be repetitive and some speaker list. The speaker list is necessary because we follow it. It's like a rule. We have to follow it. So maybe my suggestion personally is take a pen and write a few points.
Okay.
And then once it comes your turn, you can address them all. There is no specific time that you can talk. So you can talk for 40 minutes.
Okay.
But you can.
I promise I won't. But could I then propose that we create a list concerning just you guys, and then we can respond to all of your concerns and anything that's brought up? I think that would make a lot of sense, unless there's a direct question. And further, I'm in class right now, so I have to go get my things before they lock Jonas Clark. So I'll be right back.
So, Winterbot, if I understand your point, you want in referendum language under, I guess, vote on, you want that language to make clear that the money that's being allocated to the SSF takes money out of the account that otherwise would have been distributed to student funds. Is that right? So the reason that judiciary decided not to put that language in there is because it's already in the language under a no vote, that the money is coming out of the same fund that funds Clark organizations and groups. And it's a really important and careful balancing act between making sure that the referendum language has as much information as possible, but also doesn't even appear to take a particular position. And so we thought that might bias people in favor of a no vote.
Winterbot, would you like to
Yeah, I
respond
think
directly?
that's a good point, but I was actually thinking more of a supplement, one or two extra page on when we actually go out tell this with random language, rather than just saying continue this sentence, just say one or two paragraphs or something. Because people, I feel like they say student, it's going to come from student activity fund. They don't really understand what it's going to be, and we're more lucid about what it's actually mean.
I'll further in response to Winterbot's question is that by saying that it will be taking out of club and organization's budgets is not 100% true. You're limiting the scope of the student activities fund, which includes not only club and organization's budgets, but your grants budget, your advocacy budget, your equipment budget, large-scale programming on campus, including International Gala, major event committees, spring fall concert, Spree Day, Senior Week. There are a lot of other places money from the SAF goes, so by limiting it to just clubs and organizations, that's not accurate as well. So that's just something to keep in mind if in terms of changing that language. We want to make sure it's fully accurate.
Okay, I'm going to return to the speakers list, and I'd like to discuss language sort of in one clump. So I have Andrew next.
This is a question in regard to section 6 of the bylaw that talks about the review process. It's kind of branching off Ryan's question in regard to funding, future years down the road, how they include their periodic review process would be every 3 years. I think this is more of a question for judiciary. Does that mean that if we look at this bylaw or this proposal in the term of 3 years, that we would be allocating $60,000 over the 3 years? Yeah. So, because we're thinking about just next year, and that securing with this, if this eventually passed down the road, we vote that we'd be securing $20,000 for next year. But with the review process being every 3 years, does this then obligate us to, for sure, allocate $20,000 every year for the next 3 years, so that we would indeed be allocating $60,000 over the course of 3 years? If we're looking at it in a wider scope.
Right.
I think with the previous language, it would have been a conflict between the two, but with the language we just adopted in the amendment, which says that we'll be allocated starting 12-13 and annually thereafter, then the two are consistent, because we would be, if we pass this, saying we're going to allocate $20,000 every year, and every third year there will be a review process.
Yeah.
Is that right? So now that we have the amendment, it's some other additions.
Delana, I have you next.
Does that mean that there will be a referendum that will be conducted each year to allow for this $20,000, or would it mean that this referendum counts for the upcoming 3 years?
So this referenda is putting the bylaw into our constitution, so then we follow the bylaw, and bylaws aren't necessarily up for review every year. This one is up for every 3 years. I have Sam next.
Oh, just at the beginning, we were wondering about the fact that taking funds out of SAF and for clubs. To them, what kind of could clubs go for funding for particular things if they were doing a green event? What would be, what some of the they could be on the conditions that some party could go for funding, if that could help answer some of our concerns?
Yes. So the projects that we have envisioned for the fund have a very wide range, considering the definition of sustainability being just very valuable. And we are committed to not necessarily funding events that are one-time one-time occurrences, because the one thing that you can't change about sustainability is that it is maintained over time. And so that's part of our issue. We'd be happy, and the part of the idea is that all of the projects are backed by some sort of institution on campus that can then maintain the projects in the future. And that could be faculty, it could be staff, it could be any department, it could be graduate students, or it could be clubs that we're willing to pair with students to work on this project and that thing. So, I mean, if somebody was trying to fundraise for one specific green event, we wouldn't be interested in that, but we would advocate for them to expand on that project, make it an educational outreach, make it a workshop, make it something that can be continued, and kind of foster that culture as opposed to a single event.
The key word is we want a long-term impact. This is about improving Clark. It's about getting students to take their ideas and make something happen and just really making everything better.
Can I have a follow-up? Sure. So, like, would a bike share wants to get more bikes, like biking is a environmentally friendly activity, would that be something, for example, you might be which might fall under the category of
Well,
should be funds?
we would want, part of the criteria for the projects is having an outreach component. So maybe if we were gonna fund a few more bikes, we would say, well, you need to, why do you need more bikes? Tell the camp, maybe include a publicity or outreach campaign in that to let people know that they got new bikes. Just make it, we really want people to encourage them to make it bigger and better.
All right, so if I'm not incorrect, I haven't been hearing a lot of questions that are just about clarifying the purpose of, what this will be doing. Is that sort of does anyone have questions like that? Okay, so we're gonna move into discussing first, and I just wanna do this for organization's sake. So I'd like to move into discussing only the bylaw. And the wording and questions about that. After we're done discussing that and accepting possibly any amendments, we'll be discussing the referendum language. So for right now, let's stick to the bylaw and then we'll move on. All right, so questions about the bylaw, and I'll take a speaker list. So I have Ryan, I have Malat, anyone else? Rebecca. And I'd like for all three of you also to, if you'd like to speak, just raise your hand and I'll acknowledge you. Can I have your two names again?
I'm Jordan.
Jordan?
I'm Heather.
Heather, okay, so when you raise your, would any of you like to be on the speakers list? No.
None.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
All right, Ryan?
So I've noticed throughout this discussion, the three of you have used "we" a lot. So we plan on funding, we envision, we won't run out of ideas, we want long-term impact, we're going to fund this project or that project. And that speaks to a concern I have about this fund, which is that student council is being asked to create a fund with SAF money that will fund projects that the Office of Sustainability would otherwise fund. And that strikes me as a little concerning. And it strikes me as a little concerning that it's being spoken of as if there's already a set group of people and that group of people will continue. Because I would hope that if these projects are going to come from outside and from the general student population, which I guess the premise is that there's student groups out there that want to do these green funds, my concern is that you, as a group of people, already have an idea of what you want to fund, and this will just be $20,000 we're essentially handing to the three of you and a few other people to spend money. And follow up on that in the Office of Sustainability as well.
I have a lot next. And you can answer, as Eleanor said, you can answer everything sort of as
Collectively, yeah.
at the end, collectively, at the end.
So
yes?
you put me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Malat?
I'd just like to ask, why did you decide to have a 3-year process? Why wasn't this an annual process, your review process for the Student Sustainability Fund? Why can't you make it an annual process, an annual review process? So that the referendum will be brought forth like each year and the student body will be able to vote on an annual process rather than a 3-year process.
And then I have Rebecca.
Sorry. I was wondering, what's the total student activities fund? I know that doesn't have to do with it, but I didn't conference earlier.
The Student Activities Fund is calculated with an estimate of 2,000 students enrolling in Clark University, so it comes to a grand total of approximately $700,000. There are typically like 2,100 students that enroll, so that's where mid-year comes from, but it's estimated at 2,000, just like it said.
Also, how much of that is used?
How much of the $700,000 is used? $700,000.
All right, and I have Heather next.
I would like to respond to a couple of things. First, in response to, Malat, I'll respond to you first because your question is easier, but still very important. The reason why we chose 3 years is because we believe that having that a lot of people on campus have a lot of exciting ideas about these projects, and a lot of them are long-term kind of things. So it would be, for example, something like installing a green roof on campus would be an example of a long-term infrastructure project that is something student-led that would take a while to install. So the person who submits a request for that would submit the request in the fall, and if it was approved, then it would go up. They would be able to install it sometime in the spring, but you know, it may be only partially they can install it, or you know, there's something that they have to install, wait till the fall, something like that. So the idea with these projects is that some of them may be incremental, and may have to be installed over time, and may depend upon the seasons because we live in New England, and so that's something that we have to deal with. The reason why it's a 3-year review process is to give those first 3 years a time for people to actually see these changes that would happen. 1 year may or may not be enough.
Can I just quickly add on to that point before you answer? It's also an exceptional amount of work putting on a referendum and collecting signatures and getting the support, and it seems silly to dedicate the time to that versus the committee and getting things done.
Well,
so
it would be
to
a referendum every year. It would be
well,
a
no,
review
that's
every year.
Oh, well, I thought she asked about a referendum. The student
review would then lead to the referendum.
Oh, so it's just a lot of work, and we could be dedicating that time to the things that Heather mentioned and seeing projects come to their fruition. But do you want to answer Ryan's question?
Sure. Okay. So in response to your question about we and who we is, when you guys heard from Yara Persing a couple weeks ago, her presentation on the Green Mentality Survey, and first of all, I think it's amazing that over 500 people responded to that. That's great. And so from her response, from a considerable portion of the student body, people are interested in sustainability. That's something that we care about here at Clark. We have a lot of majors dedicated to it. We have many clubs dedicated to it. And there are a lot of us who want to think bigger about it. In the past few years, the Eureka projects have gone to different sustainability or green-related projects. And the problem with some of them is that that's simply not enough funding, and we want to create a fund that can support them. Like, for example, the Green Roof. Harrison Bass and a few other people won the Eureka contest for this idea, but $2,000 simply isn't enough for a green roof. And so what we want to do is support students like that who have great ideas, to be able to give them the money necessary to actually make these things happen on campus. In addition to that particular project, there have been many others that have won Eureka contests, like the outdoor recycling bins and the food co-op. Additionally, in the surplus, as you all know, in the surplus allocations from last semester, a majority of the money, or a portion of the money, went to sustainability-related projects, so we've realized that what we need for student, in order for student sustainability initiatives to go forward is funding, there's a lot of concern on campus. There's a lot of things that we want to change, so I guess that's who the we is. The we
Can
is.
I add to that also? The we is not meant as this like internal secretive organization. It's these 4 committee members that are very passionate and dedicated to sustainability. It's going to be the vice president, who could be, it changes every year. It could be someone that doesn't even like sustainability, but it's now part of their job description. So they're going to be giving a very outside perspective to the issue. I'm sorry if we bothers you, it's just been I guess a convenient pronoun. But it affects everyone. If we put water bottle fillers in, it's going to affect the whole student body. We're not looking to, I don't know, hurt it. Like, this is meant to help Clark, and it's not meant to, yeah, sorry, cutting off.
Thanks, guys. In the future, unfortunately, we can't really have too many intercessions just because we want to keep this as succinct as possible. I have Minerva next.
Yeah, for section 4.1, how many people will be on the committee? Because
There are 5, plus an advisor.
Who's going to be the advisor?
The Director of Sustainable Clark is a non-voting member of the committee. They act as the advisor to the committee. There's also an advisory board comprised of faculty, staff, and an administrative staff member as well. And the 5 members of the Student Sustainability Committee will be 4 students selected by the committee's advisor and the Vice President of Student Council, who is the 5th member of the committee.
I have Sam next.
Oh, just kind of make a small point to add on that with the 20 would be 3-year thing. That just kind of to back up them is that it's important to know how much money you're going to get next year, at least for a period of time, knowing that you're going to get X amount next year can be a really nice kind of structural thing to have. It depends. If you're like, okay, we can fund clubs now, we don't know, we have no, there's going to be up for review, so we have no idea what we're going to get next year, and that's why I think having at least a few years, or whatever number it is, a few years where you have like a confirmed amount of money each year is a good thing. And also like having like a review process to prolong midterm that.
Before we move on, I'd just like to ask members that are on their cell phone to please put them away because this is a big issue, unless it's something that's really important to be talking about.
Sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Watt.
Okay.
I just wanted to further elaborate on my answer to Rebecca earlier regarding the SAF. I should have provided you with a little bit more detail. Does the $700,000 get used completely each year? Yes. It gets used because it's there. The club, every year we have clubs that become inactive, new clubs that become active, money gets reallocated on a yearly basis. You all just raised the SAF last year. That has been clearly reflected in the decrease of grants requests you have received this year, as well as PCF requests this year. If you look at your agenda, you see you have $20,000 left in Q4 grants for this year, with 4 weeks left in the semester, which is super weird. So the money gets allocated because it's there, and it gets used. Some clubs use it all, some clubs roll over a little bit. So I don't want you to think that $700,000 is this cap, and there's no room for any renegotiation of those ones.
I'd like to make amendments. I'd like section 6 to read the SSF will go through the annual review process. This review will be conducted by CUSC along with SSF committee, but those of the review process are due. Just to change that to annual rather than 3-year period.
Is there a second? Or there's a motion on the table to amend section 6 to read annual and to strike every 3 years. Is there a second? Seconded by Minerva. Questions to the wording? Discussion?
One thing that I would like to say, although I do understand where you guys are coming from in terms of having this, like Sam said, money to rely on each year. Student organizations don't have that. Each year we have to budget for student organizations on an annual basis, and we also have to account for changes that need to be made in the SSF fund itself. So I think that needs to be also taken into consideration because there are always going to be changes, whether it be to secure funds that are already present or other things. So this would be an annual review process that would also deal with having a referenda on an annual basis as well.
I'm going to discard the previous speakers list because now we're talking exclusively about this this idea. So I have Sharon, Sam, Allie, anyone else?
I have a clarifying question.
Sure.
Can I ask that?
Yes.
I guess I'm kind of confused about the process.
Yes.
Would that mean that the Student Sustainability Fund would have to, is there a way that you could do that to have it be reviewed as a club budget is reviewed rather than having to create a new referendum? Does that question make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because having to issue, as Sharon said before, having to issue a new referendum, get signatures, lobby, talk to the student body, that would take up a lot of energy. If there is a way that this would be reviewed by student council through annual budgets, then reviewed and then you allocate just as you do allocate. Like, is that what would happen, or the former?
So I think that you have to be governed by Section 6, and nowhere in Section 6 does it say that you have to go through the referendum process again.
Okay.
So unless I'm reading that incorrectly, then you would have to go and focus on the ballot again. Corey, do you want to clarify?
All I know would happen is that every spring election, this referendum would be on the. Yeah.
So it would be re-voted?
Can I make some clarification?
Sure.
What I was saying was, I understand that it's going to be a tedious process to have to do a referendum each year, but we also have to account for other projects that are being brought up, and say this isn't an effective process. If, like, worst comes to worst, the Green Fund doesn't end up being what we expected it to be, that means that we should have to also take into account this change and have to allow for other students to also come up with ideas that you have. So I think there should be a referendum each year, and that's what I was thinking when I decided.
Okay, unless I'm mistaken, your amendment doesn't do that. Ryan?
Yeah, kind of as Lisa I think is hinting at, I don't see any language in Section 6 about a referendum whatsoever. My interpretation of this is the SSF will go through a periodic review process every 3 years. A review process, I don't think anywhere else in the Constitution is interpreted to mean a referenda, and I don't think that would be necessary under the terms of Section 6. I'm happy to have Finance Committee or some subsection of Student Council look at this fund on an annual basis. I think that's probably appropriate, but I don't see any reason to do a referenda annually.
Allie?
I move for a 3-minute recess so judiciary can, 5-minute recess so judiciary can get their story straight.
Yeah.
Is there a second? Second by Andrew. Questions, wording, discussion? I would just like to say that there's a lot of confusion and a lot of, second by Andrew. There's a lot of confusion with this, so if everyone could take a moment to go, during this recess, to go through this actual bylaw and make sure that they have, we haven't had a recess yet. If everyone could look over it and make sure that you know what parts of it you're interested in debating and which parts you're not, that would be great. Yes.
Also, during this recess, I have here the charter.
So do I.
We have the charter, so maybe during this recess, if you have questions regarding the charter, can you come talk to us?
Great, Ryan?
I have discussion about this recess. Given the hour and the fact that we're still on one of 2 referenda that we have to talk about today, can I propose that judiciary go outside and deal with it while we continue asking questions and continue this discussion?
Would that be cool?
And we vote down this
Wait, but if
recess?
there's issues regarding this bylaw with the Constitution, we have a right, judiciary
It has
needs
to do
to
with
be
both
and
referendums.
start talking while we're trying to have a discussion. And we need them to be in the room while we're having our debate.
Exactly. Elena?
I think it's extremely important that we take this moment because this recess is important for us to come to a decision that can change your vote. So it would be inappropriate to continue a debate on something that might change. So the recess is necessary.
All in favor of this recess, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
We're back.
Any abstentions? Okay, so we're currently debating about this amendment. So discussion. Ryan?
In light of judiciary's decision, I move to the previous question on Malat's amendment.
So we're now going, there's a motion to move to the previous question, which means that we'll end voting. So is there a second? Or excuse me, we'll end discussion about Malat's amendment. Is there a second? Second by Andrew. Questions for wording? Discussion? All those in favor of moving to the previous question, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, so now we're going to move directly into voting on Malat's amendment, which would change periodic to annual and would strike every 3 years from section 6 of this bylaw. So all in favor of amending it as such, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
Roll call. There's been a motion for a division of the vote. So Kate, can you go through the attendance? And how many are needed? 2/3?
No, this one is just.
This is a majority vote.
Lisa?
I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sam?
Nay.
Angie Shishu?
Aye.
Ryan?
Yes.
Allie?
No.
Jean?
No.
Devin? Oh. Unabot? Nick?
No.
Kate? Abstain? Oh, wait, no. Yes, I do. Oh my god, I'm sorry. Rory?
Abstain.
Malat?
Yes.
Rebecca Lehman? Rebecca Sompis? Baran? Ivy?
Okay, so that's 4 yes votes, 5 no votes, 3 abstentions. So the noes have it, and the motion or the amendment fails. That means that if the amendment or the bylaw goes back to read periodic and then 3 years. So we're moving back into discussion on the bylaw itself. Are there further questions or discussion about the bylaw language? Ryan?
I'd just like to say that I have obviously some concerns about the actual merits of the thing, but the fact that 500 signatures have already been collected suggests to me that there is interest in at least discussing this on campus. And so I'm going to vote to put this on the ballot.
Further discussion about the bylaw? Baran? No. Okay, so we're going to Malat? No. Okay, so
Okay, so Judiciary, maybe this is a better question for you, but so at any time, student council can review a bylaw and with like a 2/3 vote of student council, change it, correct? Blank stares are so reassuring.
That depends on how the bylaw was enacted. If the bylaw was enacted through an act of council, like someone submits a bylaw in motion, we vote on it.
So in this
approve it.
case of a referendum?
Referendums are different than bylaws.
If it's a referendum, then a 2/3 vote would put it to the student body, as it's been done now.
Okay, so if we wanted to change it, we would need to bring it, get the student body to vote on it. Yes. Okay.
Unless the group were found to have egregiously violated some part of the Constitution.
that being said, further discussion on the bylaw. Okay. We are now going to move into discussing the referendum language, and you can find that on your agenda. Discussion about this language, and please let's confine it to the actual language here, and determining whether or not we find this to be acceptable to go on the ballot. Discussion. Sam?
So this is already with the adjustment we hereafter.
Yes.
Already.
Yes, that's a good clarification. So Ryan's amendment to it still stands. Further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move into voting. All in favor of placing this referendum on the ballot for the election to be held on the 24th and 25th of April, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions? 3 abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. So this will now be placed on the ballot, and students will be voting on it as we see here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. That went a lot faster. Okay. So now we're going to move on to discussing the second referendum. So let me just introduce it, and then Jean?
Before we move into that, I just wanted to make the point that yes, it's late. Yes, we all of us have a lot to do. But this is what we signed up for as council members, and this is your effing job. So do it. Thanks, guys.
We're placing your exact wording.
That's totally fine.
In capitals.
Perfect.
All right, thank you, Jean. Okay, so now we're moving on to number 2. So this is a referendum that was brought to us by a group that's interested in starting venture capital fund. I'm sure that they can explain it in more detail. And essentially, we're going through the same process. So you have their bylaw language on your agenda, and you also have the referendum language on your agenda. And we'll sort of do this in the same way and discuss it in the same way. So again, we're discussing not particularly the merits of this, but of course, language in the bylaw itself will be up for discussion, especially because, as we just heard, we can't edit it without support from the entire student body. So that will be up for grabs later on in the discussion. And then lastly, we'll be discussing the actual referendum language. So if the group would like to explain how this will be run a little bit, we'll take questions that are directly related to the general process of how this will be run, and then we'll move into discussion of the bylaw and then discussion of the referendum. And if we could keep questions, the first set of questions, just non-combative perhaps, and just truly questions of clarification, that would be nice. And if everyone could state their names as they're speaking so that they can know how we're doing it, and I can call on you as we go through this, that would be great as well. So I'll turn it over to the 3 for you.
Good evening. I'm Michael Masters. This is Ashley McCartney, and this is Victoria Westervan. We're here representing the Student Venture Fund. So first of all, I'm going to be fairly brief. But basically what it is, the Student Venture Fund would be a resource established through student activity fees that would provide funding, recognition, oversight, and an infrastructure for student-run ventures. Student-run ventures would use business principles and strategies to pursue an identified social mission or philanthropic goal. As for how we would do this, the Student Ventures Board of Advisors is an auxiliary committee we would have a Student Ventures Board of Advisors. An auxiliary committee of the Student Council and Office of Student Leadership and Planning comprised of joint membership of undergraduate students and university staff/faculty representatives. The board will monitor the operational and financial health of student ventures and will review and approve requests for funding. The Board of Advisors will be overseen by the Associate Director of the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Program. Recognized student ventures will report to the advisory board twice a year, and a request for funding will be awarded on a rotating basis up to 4 times per year based on the following criteria. Number 1, student ventures will have an identified social mission or philanthropic purpose as a benefit of their operations. Number 2, student ventures will have established a sound organizational and operational model. Number 3, student ventures will demonstrate fiscal responsibility with at least break-even operations. And number 4, Student Ventures will develop a long-term plan to operate on or near campus after the founder/founders and/or student leadership team has left the university. Now, when considering the benefits, I would honestly say that it benefits everyone. First of all, the community, obviously, in Clark, but even beyond, because this goes beyond what Eureka can provide the university. This provides opportunities to build businesses and ventures that go beyond the Clark campus into Worcester, into Massachusetts, into the US, and into the world. Secondly, it also benefits Clark as an institution, not only benefiting the students who come here, but the institution as a whole. Having ventures leaving Clark and going abroad would really build up Clark's name. And third, LEAP program. If we really want liberal education and an effective practice, we're going to need funding. All we need is this funding. We have a structural setup. We have advisors. This would offer us a perfect medium for our effective practice and our transitioning into the real world.
In terms of our support, we've garnered a lot of support thus far. We've had the support of a team of 11 students that have been working in different capacities to help bring this idea to life, and in conjunction with the INE, or Innovation Entrepreneurship Program here at Clark. We also have had the support of the one student venture on campus, the Clark Community Thrift Store, and 2 other student ventures that will be starting in the fall, the Rent-A-Locker and the Student Food Cooperative. We also have had the support that was evident in the 700 student votes for the Eureka contest that we held over the past 2 falls. We know that the resolution and bylaw language have been approved by judiciary, and we request that as a body, the student council move the resolution forward for referendum by the student body.
All right, thank you very much. Questions from council about this report and possible motions as well? A lot?
Is there some form of like a charter or constitution that we can read?
Would you like to address that? The question was if there was a charter associated with your venture?
Yes, we have one copy here.
I would at this point entertain a motion. If anyone would like to make a motion to begin discussion of this. Ryan?
I move to place the SVF referendum on the ballot for the April 25th and 24th and 25th elections.
There's a motion on the table to place the Student Venture Fund on the referendum on the ballot for the coming election. Is there a second? Second by Becca. Questions to the wording? Discussion? Katie?
I believe what's being passed around is the student-run ventures policy, which is a university policy, so it's not something y'all can amend or edit. It's a university policy for any student-run ventures on campus, whether or not they're receiving funding through this type of fund. It's been approved through a number of different departments, business services, vice presidents, INE, SLP, so it's not something that you can. Amy might be able to elaborate.
I'm sorry, Amy Whitney from INE. And the reason, just to kind of add to that for Katie, one of the reasons is because of the difference with student-run ventures, because there's typically employment involved. That's the reason why it's a policy that governs it, and it's a university level policy, because there's different levels of liability when you add the factor of employment. It's insurance and liability issues, and that's why it's a little different than a club charter. This is a point of clarification.
Thank you very much. Further questions? Or further discussion, actually? Andrew?
This is maybe more so a question for judiciary. I think I'm a bit confused with how kind of this fund would be kind of overseen by staff and faculty. And kind of one of our, and if that maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, contradict with our kind of responsibility and oversight of the SAF as a council. I'm not sure if it's constitutional to kind of allow staff and faculty to have control over the allocation of student funds. So I was just wondering if that's a concern or if it's anything like that.
So it's not strictly unconstitutional for faculty and staff to be allocated SAF money. Also, I can look it up right now, but I believe it's the case that on the Student Ventures Fund Committee, there are students involved. Yeah. The one constitutional issue we were unsure about is that there's a clause in Money Matters that says that SAF money can't be deposited into off-campus accounts, but the policy strictly prohibits that. So that's cool.
Just from my discussions with the students involved as well as their advisors, the advisors would be sitting in more of an advisory capacity, similar to how I serve for Spree Day or Mike does for Gala, or I can't think of another one off the top of my head. Me here, I'm an advisor. But in terms of funds that are SAF funds that are allocated by the Constitution that are then advised and have a strong connection with an office, there are a number of pre-existing examples.
Further questions? All right, I think then we'll move into discussing the bylaw language itself. So I believe that Michael read a good portion of it. And I just have one quick question. Is there a section 3 of your bylaw?
Yes.
Yeah, at the bottom.
It says, the Student Venture Fund is governed under the Student Run Venture Policy overseen by the Innovation Entrepreneurship Program. It is ultimately the responsibility of the Student Venture Advisory Board to ensure compliance with the Student Run Venture Policy, both internally and among all affiliated organizations.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure that it was the same as I had here. Okay, perfect. Allie?
I just had a question about, well, two questions. One, the students sitting on the Student Venture Advisory Board, how are they chosen?
So what will happen is we will have one student from student council, either the treasurer or somebody from the finance committee, and then there will also be someone who is involved with the Innovation Entrepreneurship Department in some capacity, whether they're a minor, whether they're a student, or some other role.
And then that sort of connects to my next question. I don't know if I'm missing that, but is that in the bylaw anywhere? I mean, my main concern is that like the student. Okay.
It's definitely in there.
It's in the other.
Section 2.1.
2.1. Yes.
Also section 4.
No, but section 4 says that undergraduate student council annual budget process overseen by finance committee. So, right, they oversee the finance.
Andrew?
So my understanding is that the process for appointing students to the advisory board is outlined in their policy document. And if that's the case, then the bylaw defines that.
Okay. Is
in this document here that's being passed around.
Yes. Okay, and it says that one of the students on the board is a representative from the Clark Undergraduate Student Council?
Yes.
Yes.
Page 3 is under Student Venture Advisory Board. Oh, you don't have a copy?
Student-
I don't have a copy.
I have it.
Okay. Other questions? Malad?
Can I motion to have these draft charters put a copy for everyone to read while we discuss it?
Yes. Do we have quorum exactly, or is there one extra member?
I think we have quorum.
I can go. I don't have my copy.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table to, we don't need a motion for that. Okay. Further discussion, Jean?
It's just a grammar thing, but section 2.1, number 3, student ventures will demonstrate fiscal responsibility responsibly.
Can you make a motion?
I'd like to motion to change the word responsibly to responsibility.
Ryan, do you take that as friendly?
So friendly.
Does anyone have any objections? All right. Thanks, Jean. Any other discussions? Okay. Any further discussion about this bylaw? Ryan?
I think that given the level of preparation and thought that has gone into this, in comparison, both referenda that we considered tonight have shown a lot of work. And I think with the standards we applied to the first one, if we apply the same standards to the second one, at least I come to the same conclusion that they should be put towards the student population. So I will be voting to do so, which is why I made the motion as well.
Further questions about bylaw language? So we'll move on to the actual question that they have proposed to be on the ballot, which you can find in your agenda as well. Questions, comments, discussion? Sam?
So this goes to the student body, and say it gets approved, like what happens then? Is there amount of funding involved, or what's the?
Ryan?
So Finance Committee has been very bravely grappling with this issue already. What they have done is they have set aside $30,000, which would be the sum total, assuming both these referendums pass, in the 12-13 allocations. They've given clubs two numbers, one that they would receive if the referendums pass, and one that they would receive if the referendums fail. And so the funds have already been set aside in the event that these referenda pass. If they don't pass, then the mechanism is already in place to redistribute the money.
Okay, I just didn't see 10,000. I just didn't see a number mentioned. Just curious.
Further discussion? I don't know if people want to wait until they receive Kay's copies. No? Sam?
So what would the referendum language look like?
It would be exactly as you see printed on your agenda, where it says ballot language under referendum 2, and it's on the last page.
There's like
Well,
a third page.
I must not. Okay, I didn't get. Okay.
There you go.
I apologize. I was really confused there.
There's a motion on the table to move to the previous question, ending all debate on this matter. Is there a second? Second by Rebecca. Questions the wording? Discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of moving to the previous question, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, so we will now be ending discussion on the referenda and adding it to the ballot. So all those...
You just keep going. It's just an idiot.
Okay. All those in favor, okay guys, this is serious. All those in favor of adding this referenda to the coming election ballot, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions, motion carries. Okay, so this will be added to the ballot, and the election will take place on the 24th and 25th of April. And thank you very much for Thank you. And thank you for waiting. Alrighty, student council, we are almost done, but we are not quite. So we are going to move down. Guys, we're going to move down through new business. First of which is C. That is a moot point. If you want further discussion about it, you can talk to us later. Basically, there's a slight mistake made, and we don't need to worry about it. D is that, this is fun, actually. So remember how we allocated $4,000 to Sean Kingston?
Sure do.
Well, guess who already paid for that? Jack Foley. Guess who gets their $4,000 back?
We do.
Student council. Okay. Right.
Let's get it. Only right.
So the E-Board has been discussing the matter and would like to ask council if you're interested in further subsidizing. So the $4,000 is back in our account, and there's a possibility of still using a part of it to subsidize this concert possibly to make a certain number of tickets free for students. Ryan?
I thought that subsidizing this in the first place was a bad idea, and I voted against it. I continue to think that now, and I'm thrilled that Jack Foley's office has picked up these things.
So I
will.
Wow, I'll say really good.
Allie?
Okay, first, I move, what was the amount actually first?
Jeremy, did you have a question? Okay.
Oh, could I just make a brief point? Or is that out of place?
You can do it in a second.
Okay.
So I move to allocate $750 from the events programming portion of cumulative surplus to subsidize Clark's portion of the Sean Kingston tickets.
Is there a second? Second by Milat. Questions to the wording? Discussion? Allie?
Okay, so regardless of your personal feelings about the Elizabeth Consortium or Sean Kingston, it would look really, like we've only sold 2 tickets so far. So it would, no, the point is it would look really bad if like the first, like Clark's rows are empty. Like we would look like extreme slackers in the consortium side. Second point is when we were first discussing this, many of you said that your constituents felt that they would go to see a Sean Kingston concert if they could pay like $0 to $5. By subsidizing it for them, they could go for $0 and would get free transportation down to the Hanover.
I just want to clarify too. So this $750 would be for free tickets for the first 50 tickets.
First 50.
All right, discussion. I'm going to take a speakers list, which is great. Baran, Kate, Andrew, Rebecca, Milat. Baran, go for it.
I think that since we've only sold 2 tickets, that's evidence enough. But within itself to suggest that this concert at Clarkie's don't want to go to this concert, it's not popular. I don't see why we need to spend more money on it. I don't care if we look bad. It was a bad decision to spend. He's a miserable artist.
I would also just like to clarify that the $750 does include giving the 2 people who already bought tickets back their money.
No, they're fools for spending money.
Andrew, Baran, be respectful. Andrew?
I concur with Baran, not with the second statement, but with the first. I think on the fact that only 2 people have shown interest and bought tickets, that is a poor investment on our part.
Rebecca?
Okay. So I have a couple questions. One, can people not from Clark who are friends with Clark students go for free if we can?
No.
Katie Cabanero, I think, would be able to answer that better though.
Like, is it like one of those like influencer things? Sure. Okay. So, then no.
Milat?
Oh, okay. What I was going to say is, as Ali was saying, that, we are going to have our first 2 rows of parking, like it's going to be empty, and if you're a part of the WIG or whatever, the Worcester and Student Association, so we do to a certain extent have a responsibility for both. And there are students on campus who have never been to the Hanover, and this is going to be their only opportunity. And like we discussed, they're going to be people who want to, meet other people from other, Worcester people. So we should vote yes for this and try to get as many people psyched to go to the Hanover and meet new people. And it shouldn't only be about what you think about the artists. So it would like you said.
Katie, there's a question about the Sean Kingston concert that we've known we've been talking about.
Okay.
Would Clarkies be able to buy tickets for their friends at the free price?
Yes.
Yes. Are you sure?
I haven't decided, and I am sure.
They could go for free $99.
Okay, Katie.
So we have a block of 50 tickets from the Hanover Theater. And I'm not sure where you are in the discussion. What I had said to E-Board is because funding. Okay. So funding is coming from a source that we were not aware of, so what I suggested was perhaps using some of the money that you've already set aside for this to further subsidize ticket costs and Real School tickets. I have no problem selling tickets to Clark students and a guest. I'm not gonna sell 5 tickets or give 5 tickets to one person. But if Clark students would like to get a ticket for a guest, that is fine. If you all decide not to do this, I have to send those tickets back to the Hanover on Friday, so they can try and sell them to the general public. So if you decide to further subsidize these, I can keep them till Monday. Because essentially you are buying, for lack of a better term, buying those tickets and then distributing them.
So I have Allie next.
Okay, does anybody else remember the conversation that we had when we voted to allocate $4,000 to the Sean Kingston concert? Okay, do you remember how everyone was like, I need to talk to my constituents? And then everybody went back to their computers and like updated their Facebook statuses to be like, hey, would you be interested in going to Sean Kingston? And so many people wrote back saying like, yeah, Sean Kingston is questionable as a human being, but if it was free, I would go. Does nobody else remember that? So, here, thank you.
Solidarity.
So, regardless of whether or not you don't care if you look bad to the rest of the consortium, like, all right, if you don't care about that, regardless of your personal feelings about Sean Kingston, he's not my favorite artist either. But if you can go for free, I feel like we could get Clark students to go. Clark has already invested $4,000 into it. We might as well take them up on the offer. And it's just, what did I say? $750 out of the $4,000 that we already offered to pay. So there's still over $3,000 rolling back into the events programming portion of cumulative surplus.
We actually made $3,000. Yeah. I have Jean next.
Ooh, sorry, I was spaced out. What was I gonna say?
I don't remember.
I think it was very much along the lines of what everybody else has been saying, though, about we had this discussion, and oh, now I remember. I'm really sorry. I love caffeine. I have not seen a lot of advertisement for this, and so potentially the reason that only 2 tickets have been sold is because nobody knows it's happening. Constituent emails.
Okay, thanks, Jean. I have Ryan next.
Yeah, I mean, to respond to Allie's point, people say a lot of different things. I, for example, said today that I'd read the end user license agreement on iTunes, and that I agreed with it. But what people actually do is the salient point, and what people have done so far is buy 2 tickets. And I think that's really the only relevant thing here. And I'm kind of deeply concerned that after having put $4,000 on the line once and been burned to the tune of $2,000 per ticket, we're going to put another $750 on the line. And there's advertising up on the wall.
Really?
Sean Kingston stairs.
So those are my concerns. $2,000 is too much to see anyone except Jesus.
Concerning Katie's point about the 50 seats that we have, so if you were to return those tickets, then they would be sold back to the population, so they'd be filled up, right? And it wouldn't be just like Clark's empty row of seats anymore.
Correct. I have to give them back.
So we wouldn't even look bad.
Malat?
Yeah, it's 10:30, guys. Like, it's really late. So I move some motions to vote on this.
There's a motion to the previous question. Is there a second? Second by Rebecca. Questions to the wording? Guys, come on. Second to the questions to the wording, discussion. All those in favor of moving to the previous question, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We're now voting on whether or not to further subsidize Sean Kingston tickets. All those in favor of subsidizing Sean Kingston to the tune of $750 to come from the programming portion of the cumulative surplus, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? There's a motion to divide the vote. Kate?
Andrew, abstain. Shushu, back to you.
Yeah.
Andrew?
These are definitely
Brian? Guys, please be quiet.
Nay.
Allie?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Devin? Minervat? Mick?
Aye.
Kate? Yay. Rory?
Yay.
Malat?
Yes.
Rebecca Sompis?
Yes.
Baran?
Yay.
There are 8 yeas, 3 nays, 1 abstention. Motion carries. Rebecca?
How soon did I pick up a ticket?
Tomorrow by 8:30 in the morning.
Okay, we're going to be flinging the... Please, communications, can you publicize this? Okay, so we're all done with new business, and I'd like to return to unfinished business. And John wanted to discuss, and I might say briefly, and if you want to discuss more next meeting, then we can do that. But discuss the idea of a community representative.
It's really short. Like basically, we talked about this a couple meetings ago about like a community representative. After speaking with Andrew, I think like the best decision at this point is to create a referendum, like to put this in the Constitution. So I'll be like working on that, I guess, this week to bring it to you guys for next week's meeting, so you guys can discuss that new referendum for this election. So I think that's basically it.
The only concern is that unfortunately we've run out of time, even if it would have to have been talked about today and proposed today for this year. But I do encourage council to discuss it for next year. Andrew, am I correct?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Well, that's true. It's also true that because the referendum he's proposing would have to change the positions available, it wouldn't have been able to take effect until after the election anyway. And so, it wouldn't affect much next.
Okay, so please, if anyone's interested in this, please just talk to John. And actually, when Kate and I were tabling today, we met a commuter student who was very interested in being on council and very interested in the commuter rep position. So there is student support behind this, from at least one person.
So I'll just send it to you guys this weekend.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Okay, there's nothing else on the agenda, and there are last words. I have a last word, and that is you cannot leave here until you talk to me about God. Sorry. Other last words? No? Corey? Yeah.
All right, here's the deal. I've been on council for 4 years now, and this has been a problem every year, and it bothers me that I never run for council and done this myself. We have done a terrible job of going out and saying, we're gonna do this, and then backing out on it, and I've seen Ally basically do it every week and say, hey guys, we need to do this. You guys voted on it. We're like, no, I talked to constituents and whatever. We can't keep doing this, guys. We keep having a bad rep. So either we man up and we do the things we voted on, like the library, like Sean Kingston, like other things in the past we've done several times. So don't go to your constituents and say, yeah, a kid said yes. Either say no or say yes. Don't blame the constituents. And that is all I have to say.
Jean?
I want to second what Corey said and also reassert that you're in this room for a reason, and it's not just to bolster your resume. And if it is just to bolster your resume, leave. But you're here to represent the student body, not just yourself, not just your own opinions, which I know we all have a lot of. So please, please, please keep in mind that yes, it's late. Yes, meetings can get really long, but trust me, this is not the longest meeting we have ever had.
Good time.
Meetings have been very, very, very long in the past, and we've done a very good job. Thank you, e-board, for keeping meetings short. So please, everybody, try to keep their cool, and if you're tired, go get some coffee. But everybody try to smile, because this is what we're here to do. This is what you signed up to do. So don't get crazy. Thanks, guys.
And I would like to third this and say we've had a very productive meeting, and to thank all of you for being as passionate and succinct and well thought through as you have been. So thanks everyone, and thank you for those 2 points. Rebecca?
On my committee's behalf, could everybody just email the constituents, no matter who you are, just saying that the Sean kids can take us for free? For 50 kids?
Yes.
So everybody, if you could email them tonight, yeah.
Feel free to use exclamation points and big letters. What is it called? Upper capitals. Maybe in
And
Andrew.
I seem to recall that our good friend from Scarlet had something to say.
Oh, Jeremy. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, never mind. Sean Kingston's paid for it. It's okay. And I realized that the point I was making is that there's just something a little strange about the system when, and this obviously isn't something that's an easy fix, when we can just toss like $750 or even $4,000 to see Sean Kingston, but you all have to scramble to get $400 for a library. So that's something that at least I think council has to consider being able to work on in the future.
Run for council.
Just to clarify, the reason why it's so difficult to get $400 for a library is that we cannot directly donate any SAF money to a charity. So we have to fundraise it exclusively. Okay, cool. Katie?
And that's a university policy. That's not something student council unfortunately can change. It's something you have to take up with the controller's office. That they can all try and take up with the controller business.
Or you can run for council. I move to adjourn. There's a motion on the table to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Ron, I guess. Questions to the wording, discussion?
Oh, sorry.
Only